I have some great HOA stories for you today, and you're going to love that title story too. Here's our first one. This story takes place in a glorious HOA. Don't sue. We'll let you come onto our property to fix your sewer line. Posted by Hope We Sink. The house that I grew up in was built on the side of a hill. Great views, but the geography posed some challenges for the city utilities, sewage in particular. Their solution was to put all the houses on the hill in what was called a shared line. Essentially, one big pipe ran through all of our backyards, just below the house's basements. Effluent would flow out from the houses into the shared pipe and then down the hill to the city sewer line by the bottommost house. When we moved in, we were at the highest point that it was possible to build on and still be part of that shared sewer line. But a few years later, someone bought a lot just over the crest of the hill and linked up with ours, without being part of the planned community that had an HOA that took care of the sewer line, among other things. And in fact, they did so without the HOA's approval. And so for the next 2 decades, my family would be the subject of near constant harassment over the state of the sewer. Their end of the line was lower than ours by just enough that it would stop flowing and clog, often backing up into their basement bathroom and shower. They'd accuse us of diverting our effluent to their line, because I guess we were some kind of plumbing wizards. Now, the reason that nobody built a house on that part of the hill during the original development was that the soil was unstable, something hydrology related. Sure enough, over the years, that house would occasionally separate from the hill and slide down a couple of inches. But our neighbors had connections in the code enforcement agency, so the place never got condemned like it should be. They just had to shore it up and reconnect all the utilities. The thing is, the further down the house moved, the steeper the negative incline was from their sewer connection to our junction box, making the clogs and the backup even worse. At one point, it got so bad that their sewer barely even flowed. Some days, it got completely clogged. And somehow, this was our fault. They spent the next year calling us every time they tried to flush a toilet and crap came out of their downstairs shower. They called a plumber, who said that they had to redo their part of the shared line, and to do it, they'd have to bust through our 2-story masonry wall so that they could get a backhoe onto our property and dig out the line. Of course, we had issues with this. We said no, you will not come onto our property and tear it up with a big old piece of construction equipment. Hire human laborers or something. But instead, they hired lawyers who started slinging paper around. According to them, we were in violation of state law that specifically gave an implied easement, granting a homeowner access through another's property to maintain their own. So we hired lawyers of our own, who said that we basically had a choice. We could win the case, but pay a ton of money, or just let it happen. Either way, we'd be screwed. But they pointed out one important fact, that the 20-year-old masonry wall wasn't in the greatest of shape anyway, so a few months later, we presented them with a bill for $75,000 for the rebuilding of the wall, installation of a new set of stairs, replacement of the entire wrought iron fence that had separated the 2 properties, resodding, replacement of ornamental plants and shrubs, and some minor repairs to our sewer, which they had borked up while relaying their pipes. I'm not a general contractor, but my guess is that they could have hired pick and shovel labor to dig out that pipe and replace it with a new one for a fraction of that price. But no, they had to have a giant Caterpillar tread machine to do it. They balked, but then we handed them a Xerox copy of the letter that their lawyers had sent us with, pursuant to paragraph blah 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 of the Common Code of blah blah blah, citing the next paragraph, which stated that the person using the easement was 100% responsible for any damage that might be caused. They still balked, but my parents put a lien on their property that stayed there to the day that they tried to sell, at which point they had to pay up or the purchaser's creditors wouldn't underwrite a mortgage. I think they had to pay interest too, but I'm not 100% sure about that. Can you believe that OP got literally a $75,000 wall basically for free? What would have you done? OP is a loudmouth around the HOA snitch. Oh, this is not good. How would you handle it? This just happened and I feel like such a jerk. Backstory 1. My next door neighbors moved in 2 to 3 years ago. Initially, I was excited because they have a little boy a year younger than my son, and I remember growing up next to all my friends, and I wanted that for my son. My son back then was 2 or 3, and I quickly got to work to baking cookies to welcome the new neighbors. We brought them over, knocked on the door, and they invited us in, and the boys played. The husband showed me the tablet that has all the camera feed from the cameras that he just installed, and the wife gave me the impression that she thought that we were in a dangerous neighborhood. Honestly, just a normal middle-class neighborhood. But whatever, let her be a worrywart. I thought they were nice. Slowly, they began to do things that annoyed the rest of us neighbors. We live in an HOA neighborhood, and they began changing their yard drastically without written consent from any of us. First, they made their driveway wider, which was fine, but then they built a literal wall in between them and the neighbors to their other side. We made jokes that they must be Trump supporters because those neighbors are more obviously Latino than us, but they were still acting nice towards me. One night, the wife told me to bring them baked goods whenever I made them, since I bake often and tend to give the majority of it to my neighbors, so I asked her. I baked a chocolate cake with hazelnut frosting and then brought them some slices. Just a really quick drop-off, really. 2 days later, there was a fence 10 feet high blocking their door off 10 feet away. If they just told me to not bother bringing them baked goods, I wouldn't have given them baked goods that I put a lot of work into. All of this without asking any of us. At the same time, all of us have gotten letters from the association for minor things. Brought a trailer a couple of days before a trip to start packing? HOA letter. Car parked on the driveway for too long? HOA letter. Cover your car every night with a protective cover? HOA letter. Dogs, HOA letter, and animal control. So many more things. Do we have any proof that it's them? No, but are they the only new neighbors that we've had? Yes. Their son wants so badly to play with my son too. There have been times that he's run into our house and his mom doesn't even realize that he's gone. My neighbors have chased this kid down the street, the mom wandering out of her house when they've already caught him and are bringing him back. I feel so bad for him because it's not his fault his parents are jerks. So I accidentally got her number because her dog was loose and I texted the number, not knowing it was hers. I had to give him to the local animal hospital because I was waiting for over an hour for any communication, and I couldn't keep him because my dogs don't like chihuahuas. After 3 hours, she called asking for him and saying how she saw my text earlier. If I had known it was her dog, I would have kept him. I just couldn't risk keeping him overnight. She reluctantly invited us to her son's birthday a few weeks ago. My mom asked her what she was doing for his birthday, and when she said party, she felt obligated to invite us, I guess. She then opens up texting as a means of letting the boys hang out. My other next door neighbor sells doobie roaches to pet stores and private clients. He has a pretty cool system set up and everything, all done out of his house. Today was the first day they've hung out after the party. They were playing with chalk and the little boy kept trying to run into my house, which I don't mind, but his mom minds, so my son kept having to bring him back. My son got tired and just locked the door. But guess whose garage was open? My other neighbor. The little boy ran to go into his house, but he was standing in his garage to catch him. My neighbor's really nice. He's my favorite, and probably everyone else's favorite too. I saw my neighbor and the crazy child and thought about just how much my son loves bugs and just said, "Hey Timmy, want to see a cockroach?" Behind me, the mom caught up and was like, "What?" And I was just so stupid that I mentioned that he has a bunch of reptiles to eat. He gives me a look and I knew I screwed up. I just told the neighborhood snitch something that I shouldn't have. I tried to later cover up when she asked probing questions because I guess she's noticed him selling something. And I told her it was only to like a couple of friends since the stores are so expensive and that he moved them out somewhere else to get them out of the house. But I fear the damage is done. Any ideas on how to distract them from contacting the HOA? People always give me ideas, but of course they got their cameras. Who do you side with, the neighbor or the OP, and what happens if the HOA finds out about this? As we get into the next story, I have to tell you something. Hey, also I added more stories to the new 24/7 HOA Karen radio stream on the channel, perfect to binge or play for background noise while you sleep. Check out the link in the description or on the front page of the channel. It looks like this. HOA raising monthly assessments and adding fees despite the fact that we've been under budget by 60 grand plus for the past 2 years by night of knee. So we bought a house in a townhome HOA in Colorado almost a year ago. There's maybe 200 townhomes in total here. I will admit up front that I didn't put in the time or the effort into the HOA when I first moved in, and I missed the quarterly meetings, also because I work late. Here's a brief summary of what they're doing. Effective next week, they're bringing back a parking policy from 2007 that will charge $30 a month or $360 a year per car parked outside of our 2-car parking garages. Bear in mind that there is absolutely no shortage of open parking spots here every day, and the outside parking spots are completely uncovered and unsecured. It's an open community, no gates and no security. We live in a smaller town on the outskirts of Denver. This is the suburbs, not downtown Denver. The townhomes sold here are all 2- and 3-bedroom homes in a commuter neighborhood. The average household has 3 or 4 cars. The parking policy was made in 2007 when the community was built. It's a regulation, but it's not included in our CC&Rs as an article, section, or attachment. The CC&Rs do give the board authority to make regulations, but this regulation was not included in the CC&Rs that we received as new homeowners after 2007. On top of that, this regulation has not been reviewed since 2007, and frankly, it's outdated. Due to the above parking policy, I started looking into our budget. There is no shortage of open parking spots, so I thought there might be a budgetary need for this exorbitant monthly fee. What I found out was that we were over $60,000 under budget in 2017. We're on track to be under budget for about the same in 2018, $61,000 under budget as of August 15th. The surplus funds are being put in a reserve fund that's already over $1 million. This is what they're supposed to do with the surplus fund per our CC&Rs. I'm pretty sure we're so under budget because they will not use this money for the road repairs on the HOA's private property. We're involved in a 4-year-old lawsuit with the builders about the roads, so we cannot fix them with community funds. Despite being under budget for 2017 and 18, they're raising assessments in 19 from an already pricey $185 a month to $190 a month. They're raising monthly fees and adding an exorbitant monthly parking fee when we're tens of thousands under budget. How can they possibly justify raising assessments and or adding this fee? So here's what I've done. I've reached out to the community manager several times since November 15th. All I'm getting in response is, your concerns have been forwarded to the board. I reached out to my neighbors via Nextdoor, and I also went around putting flyers on people's windshields, advising of the upcoming changes and how to complain to the community manager. I know of at least 10 neighbors that complained to the management company, and they've received the same lackadaisical response. We belong to a bigger neighborhood HOA that literally encompasses half of the town, thousands of homes, and I reached out to their manager for any advice on how to proceed with the complaint, as there is no official avenue of complaint in our CC&Rs, and I'm not getting a response from the board. She just said that she doesn't really have any authority to step in. Last night, I emailed our community manager and I requested the contact information for the lawyer for our local community association. No reply yet. So I'm going to submit a complaint to my town's government, though I don't think there's much that they can do. I'm going to submit a complaint to the Division of Real Estate for Colorado, but even they admit that they neither investigate nor enforce, so I'm not sure how helpful that'll be either. If nothing comes from either of those, I have to go around the community getting a petition signed, but there's no official petition form or process included in our CC&Rs. How do I make sure that they don't ignore me or us? Any advice on how to proceed here? Anything I'm doing or not doing that could help get an answer? My ultimate goal is to get an emergency HOA meeting scheduled so that we can vote these things down. I've requested that in at least 3 separate emails to the community manager and the management company's general inbox. An update. I did receive an email from the community manager a couple of hours ago, and the board is scheduling an emergency meeting for next week. What would you do if you were OP? This story takes place in an HOA, or at least that's what this insane Karen thinks. To give some backstory, I'm a 19-year-old in a community college living in a small neighborhood in my parents' old, small house. I mow my own lawn, which is reasonably small because there is no HOA and I can't hire anyone to do it for me. Also, the sun and exercise is great. 3 of my neighbors are either elderly, don't have the time, or don't own mowers of their own, so I mow their reasonably small lawns for free at the same time that I mow mine. I live in a very close neighborhood, so while I may do mowing, another neighbor may power wash driveways or some such. Let's just say I mow out of the goodness of my heart, and I get compensated with a bottle of cold water afterward by 2 out of the 3. The 3rd, however, is where the malicious compliance begins. The 3rd neighbor is a very stubborn 40-something-year-old lady who owns her own mower. She can afford to hire someone to do it for her, is very specific about how and when her lawn gets done even though it's free. Reason 3 ticks me off the most, honestly, because she does not let me use my mower or fix hers. Seriously, it's like she's punishing me for volunteering to help her. And this mower is a piece of junk. The blades are dull, and she doesn't let me sharpen them. It's clogged full of old grass. She doesn't let me clean it. And yet, every time I ask if I can tidy it up, she snaps, "Quit wasting time and just get the job done." She is mean, entitled, and doesn't care that I do 4 lawns in one day. Even on days where I can't mow the lawn because I'm feeling under the weather or I'm just busy with school, she threatens to call the HOA. Again, we don't have one, and report me for running a business without a license unless I get the lawn mowed. I'm pretty sure of 3 things. You don't need a license to mow a lawn, it's not a business since I don't ask for money or compensation, and that she doesn't have the number for the homeowners association that doesn't exist. I honestly should have stopped volunteering to mow her lawn a long time ago, but I just never had the heart. Except for last week. It's July, rainy and very hot, and on the morning I was scheduled to mow, it poured like a son of a bee. Now, those of you who mow lawns know, you can't, or rather shouldn't, mow your lawn directly after it rains for various reasons, and my neighborhood is pretty shaded, so it takes at least a day to dry up. So around 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm just relaxing and enjoying the free time, when out of nowhere, there's a frantic smashing of a fist on my door. I would call it pounding, but it honestly wasn't. Lo and behold, it's stubborn Lady Karen, looking annoyed as ever. As soon as I crack my door, the yelling starts, and I'm almost blasted back as she tries to push my door open. I couldn't make out most of what she was saying, but I did hear the words lazy, brat, and millennial thrown in there. I'm pretty laid back and used to dealing with angry adults, so this doesn't irk me all that much, but when she pushed the door open, that started to tick me off. And then she started to talk in an understanding voice. "Why isn't my lawn mowed? I need it mowed right now." "Ma'am, it rained pretty heavily today, and I don't give a rat's butt what the weather is like. You better get your freaking butt out there. I have company." "Ma'am, I'm not going to do your lawn. I didn't even mow my own today. Please stop harassing me." With her teeth clenched and her neck veins popping, "If you don't mow the lawn right freaking now, I will report you like I should have done a long time ago." Now, while I could have argued, which I don't like to do, I thought of a better plan. "All right, ma'am, may I at least use my mower?" "No freaking way, you snot-nosed kid. I want my lawn exactly the way I like it." My plan was in action. So, grabbing her lawnmower and seeing that her and her company's freshly rained-on fancy cars were all right on the edge of the lawn, I started to mow. I only got about halfway through before the mower completely shut down due to clogging and the sheer dullness of the blade, but it all worked out. Later that day, after a nice shower and a meal, I heard the reaction to my compliance, which was, to my amusement, the insane screaming and ranting about why the lawn was only half done and every car was caked in mud and grass. I only got in trouble with her, as none of my neighbors liked her very much, and of course she threatened again to report me to the non-existent HOA, to which I said, "Go ahead." And then, once and for all, I told her that I refused to mow her lawn ever again. An update. I would just like to add that the other neighbors are going super out of their way and pitching me a few dollars to help me buy a brand new self-propelled mower. Go neighborliness. My town has a horrible HOA Karen who actually tried to put a lien on my house. I never signed up for her stupid HOA, but she tried to pull some crap on me that I've never seen before. Last week, a letter arrived. A certified letter, no less, the kind that feels like it's carrying bad news. Never had those? Well, bad news it was. HOA Karen claimed that I owed hefty fines for violating obscure rules that no sane person could keep track of. Apparently, my front yard was an eyesore, my mailbox was too fancy for her taste, and my choice of paint color was a personal insult to her sensibilities, or rather, lack thereof. Now, I'm not one to back down from a fight, especially when it comes to my house. So, I took her to court with evidence that I was happily outside of the HOA's grasp. It turns out the overzealous Karen had mistaken me for someone else. A rookie mistake, but one that cost me days of stress and countless eye rolls. The courtroom became hot, and I made sure to highlight every single little stupid idiotic flaw in HOA Karen's argument. The judge listened, eyebrows raised higher than Willie Nelson, as I debunked her claims one by one. I could almost see Karen's self-righteous facade crumbling like the paint on her raggedy old fence. She had no ground to stand on. I swear she did it just because she didn't like me. Mistake me for someone else? Bullcrap. Maybe thought I'd back down out of fear or something. But nope, not me. Justice prevailed, and the court ruled in my favor, as they should. Not only was the lien promptly removed, but HOA Karen found herself on the receiving end of a fine for her baseless accusations. I mean, you can't just accuse people of stuff, right? And as the late great Billy Mays said, but wait, there's more. Word spread like wildfire through the neighborhood gossip grapevine. Karen was once the queen of the HOA and was now hated by everybody. The neighbors were once intimidated by her rule and showed her respect. They reveled in her downfall. It turns out, people don't take kindly to being ordered around, even in the name of a homeowners association. From that day on, nobody looked at HOA Karen the same. Everybody wisened up to her tricks and stopped letting her walk all over them. I mean, that's what it comes down to, right? Somebody's going to try to take advantage of you if they think you won't fight back and make up some stupid crappy excuse, and then you do and take them down. Would have you done the same? HOA story time. You need to follow the law. Okay, no problem. By unintegrity. I live in an apartment block in Europe with about 100 apartments in total. Every year, we have an election for what could be compared to an American HOA, where we elect a president and a couple of board members to manage the general expenses and the daily maintenance tasks, like fixing the garage port, cleaning the common areas, security cameras, and so on. While we do have a rule book of sorts, nobody in the board has ever been too bothered by neighbors going their own way, as long as there's no complaints. I am the president of this HOA as of today, and I have had my fair share of interesting neighbors, but this one takes the cake. He bought a fancy Tesla, which he made an effort to flash around the neighbors, kinda condescending on how useless old cars are, how we live in the past. Thing is, we don't have a charging station in the garage, so he has to go to the gas station to fill up the battery. There was no charger when he came in, so that shouldn't come as a surprise here. But as soon as he got the car, he started pestering the board, asking about the EV charger. We need to keep up with the modern times, you know? We repeatedly answered that it's in our plans and that we would love to get him on board to help us, as he was the main interested person for the task. This should make the process much more efficient. He never responded to the invitation to join and to help. There's even a small payment for the board members, and we are slammed with other higher priority tasks that have suddenly popped up, like fire alarm upgrades, changing parts of the sprinklers, and so on, so we really cannot use much time in EV charging, although we all agree that we have to get that going. Suddenly, I got a phone call from an electrician reading from the law that we cannot deny an EV charger in the garage and that he would come the following week at our earliest convenience. I just asked him for some time to read the law and make sure that we were on the same page, and in the conversation, he slipped the name of the person who had ordered the charger. To no surprise, it was a Tesla man. There are others with EVs in the garage, and we have a fluent communication with them about this matter. They prefer to wait and then work on the case, which is fine by me. So I reread all the laws and our internal regulations to make sure that we were following everything to the letter. It turns out that the law forces an HOA to facilitate the infrastructure for EV charging, not the stations themselves, as long as there is not a force majeure reading against it, like economical reasons. And our internal regulations state that changing essential infrastructure of the building needs to be done under the approval of the General Assembly, which happens once a year. I talked to our finance manager, and he argued strongly against such an expense without getting a loan to partially finance it, as it would destabilize the economy of the community. With all that, we decided to comply with the regulations fully. We won't decide on any structural changes on the building until the next General Assembly. We need a person dedicated to following the steps of finding providers, comparing offers, and presenting them first to the board, and then to the rest of the neighbors. This also includes safety measurements for the upgraded infrastructure. Once we have a budget, we will find bank offers for the loan that we will have to take most likely, and then we need to hire a lawyer to update the rulebook to account for the use of chargers in the garage. As steps 1 and 3 are dependent on the General Assemblies, the process will inevitably be prolonged in time, and we know that the neighbors are generally against taking up a loan that will increase their monthly cost. So he will have to fight an uphill battle for being a pain in the butt. The best part of this is that before all this happened, we were considering setting a temporary charging station for everyone, instead of the ideal solution of everyone being free to set their charger on the spot. That would not require a loan and was planned to be done during 2022. Now, we will have to ask the Assembly if this is an interesting way forward and abide by the response. I feel bad for the EV owners because when the Tesla guy invoked the rules, the game changed and now they have to wait for all the official process instead of having a temporary, just A-OK solution while we got the rest in place. Do you agree with Mr. HOA President here, or is he in the wrong? Let me know. This story takes place in an HOA, entitled "Lady Tries to Take My Surfboard After Trespassing on Private Property" by Sack of Memes. So to set the scene, I live in a very small beach town in North Carolina. We get a crazy amount of tourists in the summer months, but not quite as much as Myrtle Beach, a large city in South Carolina, one of the most popular on the East Coast outside of Florida. We get our fair share of naive tourists, and during my time as a lifeguard, I probably got asked 3,000 questions about sharks or jellyfish or stingrays in a day. Instead of saving people from the water, I spent most of my time telling people to stay off the dunes, or telling people not to swim up to the boats. So anyway, the cast composed of myself, a naive entitled Karen tourist, and her naive entitled Kevin's son. So anyway, I saw that there was supposed to be some excellent surf one day and decided to head to the beach for a little shredding action. My beach access is part of a private neighborhood and it's paid for by my HOA, which means that it's private property. Once I get up to it, I see a middle-aged woman and her son, maybe 6 or 7, standing at the gate, holding floats. I think, great, I'll have a little arguing to do, because people are supposed to stay off unless they pay taxes for it to be maintained. So I walk up and the convo goes a little like this. Karen says, "Hey, what's the code for this beach access?" "Well, it's a private access," I say. "Are you visiting? I haven't seen your face around here. Where are you staying?" She points to a house that isn't part of the HOA and it was developed after my neighborhood was. "Oh, that house is part of a different neighborhood. That one uses a public access. See where the sidewalk is?" "Oh, come on, it's right across the street. Just tell us the code." "No, ma'am, this access is paid for by our own taxes. There's a public access literally 50 feet to the left with no code." "No, I demand that you let me and my son through, or I will call the police." "Go ahead. In the meantime, I'm going to use the public access. If you care to join me on the beach, then you can follow me on that access." I left her and her son red-faced like that, and then I walked to the public access. About 10 minutes go by, and I kind of forget about the pair. I'm putting wax on my board and waiting for my friend to show up in the meantime. I turn away from my board to head down and look at the water, and look for a good spot or a rip current. And lo and behold, I see the kid trying to lift my board and his mom grinning at him. Keep in mind that my board is a 9-foot beast that has to weigh at least 50 pounds. My dad got it in Maui 20 years ago from a custom board store that's no longer open, and it cost at least $700 to $800. I run back up to the pair, and my usually good nature was out the window. "Hey lady, get the heck off of my stuff. How dare you speak to me like that? I'll speak to you however I want to speak to you. Tell your son to just quit grabbing at my stuff." At this point, he had it fins up and was sitting on it, which is a massive no-no for surfing. It curves upward, and if you put too much weight on it, it might snap. I yanked it out from under him, and he fell forward into the sand. "Get away from my son. I'm gonna sue you until you need to file for bankruptcy." "What the heck, lady? I'm defending my property. You can't sue me for crap." "Frickin' pedo, my baby just wanted to see it. He wasn't hurting anyone." At this point, her son is bawling, and he is screaming something along the lines of, "Mommy, he broke my rib." Grow up, kid. Lady, don't touch my stuff again, or I'll call the police on you. At this point, a lot of people around me are angry at this lady, and I notice my friend has shown up and has a massive grin on his face. When I look away to make a face at him, the lady tries to yank the board out of my hands. I just let it drop. It falls onto her, and she buries her butt in the sand. I snatch it back up from her and jerk a thumb at my friend to run to the water. I turn to the kid, and I say, "Don't turn out like your mother." I then turn and run towards the water with my friend and fill him in, and from what we can see from the waves, the lady is getting shamed off of the beach by the other beachgoers, most of whom knew me and knew I wouldn't fly off the handle unless it was something crazy. How would you handle Karen if you were OP? Holy crap, that's not good parenting, man. I say that as a dad. The HOA demands that I follow their rules, but I'm not even in the HOA. Click the video on your screen so you don't miss the fallout of this one, and I will see you there.